Okay, so moving to our interview, I'd like to know when was it, like when was the first incidents that you noted that there was something abnormal going around with you or your body, or like when was it actually?
Sure. So it actually was summer in 2019
Mm-hmm.
when I started to notice that I had some changes in my breast, my
Okay.
right breast to be particular, and
Mm.
it was starting to become misshapen. And I when I first noticed that it was becoming misshapen, and quite honestly, my nipple was starting to invert a little bit, I
Okay.
kind of laughed it off. I'm like, oh, I'm approaching 50 and my body's changing like a 50-year-old woman. And so I laughed it off at first.
Mm-hmm.
Then as the summer progressed, it got a little bit more noticeable to me. So I got nervous.
This was in year 2001,
2019. It was in 2019.
2019, just
Yep.
like 2019, 2021. Okay, just 3 years old now.
3 years
Okay,
old.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So towards the end of the summer, I think it was August, I wrote it down so I remember, August 29th,
Mm-hmm.
I went to my gynecologist
Mm-hmm.
and said, I don't think something's right. And we joked about it at first. I told him
Mm-hmm.
my theory about turning 50 and my, body changing. And we laughed. He left the room. I changed into my gown. He came back in. He took one look and he said, oh, no, no, we need to stop laughing now. This is not turning 50. This is not normal.
Yeah.
We need to get this checked. Um, so literally after that date, my life became a whirlwind of doctors and doctors and doctors. I was diagnosed very quickly. I went
Mm-hmm.
the very next day for a
Mm-hmm.
3D ultrasound. I mean, an ultrasound and a 3D mammogram. That was the next day. I then was sent for a biopsy a few days later. And
Mm-hmm.
then on September 5th, I was diagnosed.
Okay, so from the summer to the September, it was a journey from summer to September.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
the
I was,
summer as in what month? Because we have
oh,
we have
yeah.
seasons upside down here. So
So I
like,
noticed it around the June timeframe. So
okay,
June through August is when I noticed it.
yeah,
The end of August,
another 3 months you were diagnosed.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And then,
and
go ahead.
this was all just only that one abnormal nipple which you noticed.
That's the
No,
only thing I
no.
noticed.
Mm. And that which you noticed when you are like taking personal care while bathing or something, you noticed that there is some abnormal nipple on my body. Like, this is very abnormal. It has not been for the past 50 years, and this is maybe
Exactly.
the thing which is 51st thing on
Exactly.
in this 51st year.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So you just made up your mind, and it took some 1 month, and after 3 more months, you were like diagnosed after a biopsy. It was
No,
approved.
actually, I went to the doctor on August 27th and I was diagnosed on September 5th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it
So
was
like this, like based on that one look only, he told that yeah, madam, you have something to worry, and we need to research it further. Okay.
yeah, so
So when, yeah, so they did only a needle biopsy
yes, so they did a needle
this September.
biopsy. Well, they did
Mm-hmm.
the mammogram, the ultrasound, guided biopsies. So they did
Yeah.
the needle biopsy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the biopsy was done on September 3rd. On
Okay.
September 5th, which was what, 2 days later,
Yeah.
it came back.
The
Um,
histopathological report you got. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the report came back. It was invasive ductal
Mm-hmm.
carcinoma. Um,
Okay.
at that time, they staged it at a stage 2,
Okay.
and
Yes.
it was a 3.5 centimeter tumor.
Okay. 3.5.
And what was happening is the tumor was so deep, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, as it was invading territory, it was shrinking my nipple in and
In
making it
it was
misshapen.
puckering. Yeah.
It was puckering, yeah. So that day, the Staging changed after surgery, of course, because they do a restaging afterwards, and it ended up being 1A later. But
Mm-hmm.
at that time, they staged it at 2.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so when you got your biopsy report and they said, Madam, it's stage 2, and we have, like, with a serious face, they'll come to you to tell you that, yeah, it's not a good report and it's stage 2. How did you respond actually when you found out?
So
Or you had an idea when they gave you the mammograms and the sonography itself that there is something you have to worry. So
you
you
read
got
my
time
mind.
from,
You
yeah.
read my
So you
mind.
got time from the pre 5th September to 5th September.
Yeah, I pretty much knew at that point with all the seriousness that the doctors were sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could literally tell on their faces. Um, my gynecologist, when I first went, phrased it best when he said, "Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, doesn't look good." He said, "I usually don't say that to people, but this doesn't look good." So I had a little more time to prepare than it just being like thrust in my face at that moment.
Yeah.
But I think with me, I'm very task oriented. I'm very, let's just get this done. So my first thought was, okay, well, how do we fix it? Right? What do we do
Yeah.
next? Right?
What options we have? Yeah.
What options do we have? I honestly didn't really have that moment of self pity. I didn't have that moment of, oh my gosh. I had that moment,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, there's something wrong. Let's just fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And how did you react with people when you came, like you were aware of after the mammogram and USG itself that half of it you just discovered it in your own mind that, yeah, something is there and it's going to be bad. But how did you react when the somebody has to break the glass, no, like somebody has to come and tell that, Madam, this is this. So how did you react with your family and how was it actually with them?
so the hardest people to tell were my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was a junior in high school. We knew
Mm-hmm.
the road ahead was going to be rough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we didn't want to disrupt her life, but we knew we were going to be disrupting her life. So we actually, she had a field trip at school that she was going to be gone for a week. So we kept it a secret from her for probably 3 weeks after the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and told her when she got back. And that was probably the hardest part was telling her, because she's young, I'm her mom, I'm her
Yeah.
world. Um,
Mm.
that was hard. My husband literally couldn't speak words. He was so just telling her devastated him so bad he couldn't speak.
More
So
than you, more than you, he was shattered, or who
I
was
think
the?
he was more than me at first. Yeah. I got shattered later. But I think you find as a mother and
Yeah,
as a wife,
yeah. The
you
mother is
try
the strongest.
you got to be the
Yeah,
strong one. You know they're going to fall apart, so you have to
yeah,
hold it together. The
yeah,
second hardest person to tell was my mother.
yeah.
We had just lost my father a year before. Um,
Okay.
my
Sorry about that.
father had probably a 5-year struggle with Alzheimer's and dementia before he passed.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
she had literally spent 5 years caring for him.
Yeah,
And then here I am almost a year after his death saying, oh, by the way,
yeah.
sorry. So telling her was difficult. We actually waited to tell her
Mm-hmm.
until closer to the mastectomy, because
Okay.
we didn't want to worry her any longer than possible.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told her, obviously she was devastated. And it was again back into the strong mode of, okay, mom, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was difficult, but she's a trooper too. She's
yeah. After all, she's your mom,
yeah,
mother of a
she
mother.
she went in mom mode as well. So yeah, those were the hardest parts.
Yeah,
Telling friends was difficult, obviously. But friends were easier than family, obviously.
yeah. Because you just give a statement that this is it, and now you people deal with it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
How difficult was it for you to come in the terms with this reality, and what impact did it have on your life priorities at that time, actually?
So my biggest concern at the time was trying to keep as much normalcy for my daughter as possible. As I said
Mm-hmm.
before, she's getting ready to go to college. She was trying to keep her grades up because she wanted to get scholarships, and I didn't want her to be overwhelmed with what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed strong for her. Um, my other biggest concern was work. Um,
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen my LinkedIn, but I'm pretty OCD when it comes to work. At that
yeah.
time, I was a finance director. I had 8 people reporting to me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that I didn't impact my work and that I kept things, going
Yeah.
on as usual. Um, so the reality was trying to make sure that I didn't let my illness impact my work or my family.
Okay. So till September 5th, you were still working.
I worked the entire way through. The only time I took off 3 weeks for my mastectomy.
Yeah.
I took off a week for my hysterectomy, and I
Mm-hmm.
took off a week for my reconstruction surgery. Other than that, I didn't miss a day.
Yeah. So like um, when was the like on 5th we found it as sarcoma breast, and when did you undergo the mastectomy?
October 2nd.
Okay. So September to October, 1 month it was in between for you to prepare mentally that you have to plan a surgery.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the month
Uh,
in between that, it's time to prepare mentally, but you also have to choose a plastic surgeon
yeah,
during that
who will
time as
be?
well. And then they
Mm-hmm.
have to coordinate schedules between the plastic surgeon and the breast
Oncotine.
surgeon. Yeah,
Yeah.
because one obviously does the removal, and then the other
Mm-hmm.
one comes in and they switch, and that doctor
Yeah.
prepares for the reconstruction. So it took me a little bit of time to pick a
So it
plastic
was the
surgeon.
only, yeah, it was a single surgery with two stages, or it was two different surgeries?
It was one surgery, 2 stages. It was a
Yeah,
seven hour.
single surgery. Okay. Okay. And what, like, how much was the, like, what did they tell you that how much was the expected blood loss and how much you've had a blood loss? Anything they told you actually regarding that?
Yeah,
No.
I didn't want to know that. I just so
Okay. And did they show you the operative sample? Like, this is what we have got out from you.
I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to
You
see it.
just kept, you didn't open the Pandora's box.
No,
So.
I didn't. So they took out. They obviously took both breasts. They
Mm-hmm.
took 7 lymph nodes. Because I did have lymph node involvement.
Oh, yeah.
One of the lymph nodes had extracapillary extension,
Okay.
which means that obviously the cancer was on the outside of the lymph
Yeah.
node. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the others were fine. The others were cancer free. So it was just, thank goodness, the
Yeah.
one that was involved and it was heavily, obviously full.
Okay. So what was your like experience with this treatment which was going on? How was the experience with the treatment part?
So the mastectomy, I'll be honest with you, was really difficult to recover from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't, and I know they tried to prepare me going into what it was going to be like afterwards, but I guess not being a doctor or having any, vast knowledge of the human body, I didn't really realize the breast tissue and how far it goes around and what all it encompasses. And when they said you won't be able to lift your arms afterwards for several weeks, I really
Yeah.
don't think I understood the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
But literally for 3 to 6 weeks after, you literally can't raise your arms.
Yeah.
Um,
Even the first few weeks, every time you breathe, it reminds you you have a
yes,
mastectomy done.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Between that and those awful drains that they put in, oof,
Any, yeah. So you had a drain with a canister, a vacuum canister with a drain. Yeah.
yeah,
How
yeah.
many days was it with you actually?
Oh, so I had 2 drains, one on each side,
Hmm.
and they said I would have the drains about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Um, but they also said to kind of remain as inactive as possible because that would, and I am not the kind of person to remain inactive. So I think
Yeah.
I was more active as than I needed to be. So mine were in like 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And could you tell me a little bit about those doctors who were treating you actually? Who was the first one who diagnosed you? Who
Mhm.
was the first one who broke the glass and who did a biopsy and who did surgery and the plastic surgery, oncotine?
Sure. So my original doctor was my gynecologist that I went
Mm-hmm.
to. He
Mm-hmm.
referred me to obviously get the ultrasound and the
Mammogram.
mammogram. Yeah. And that was just at a clinic. That wasn't really an actual doctor. Um,
Mm.
then I was referred to my breast surgeon. And at
Okay.
that point, the breast surgeon did the rest. So the breast surgeon did the biopsy.
Mm-hmm.
He did the staging. He's the one that later did the initial surgery of the breast removal and the lymph node removal. Um,
Okay.
then the plastic surgeon that I met, he is the other doctor that came in and he did the reconstruction piece. And it wasn't a full reconstruction. He
Mm-hmm.
did the implants, the tissue expanders, actually. I got tissue
Yeah.
expanders. So he implanted the tissue expanders.
Okay. And
This
like
point, there's
how
three
was,
doctors involved.
yeah, how was your actual stay in the hospital? Like how many days you were in the hospital for all 3 weeks, or how was it actually?
So, welcome to the United States. I was in the hospital one day.
So they sent you home with the drains and
Yes,
asked you to come back, and
yes,
you used to like get it only charged. The drain was only charged. The vacuum was only recharged, and that's it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep. So
we
I had,
have that. Now these like when I was in my MBA, like it's like 5 or 6 years ago. I have seen that change that the patient gets operated and stays 3 days. And by the time I finished my initial undergraduation, I could see the patient is discharged on the same day. So that
oh,
change I have seen. Yeah, like
yeah.
the 3 day stay as well as the 1 day stay and patient going home. I have seen that changing.
I would have,
And
I'd have preferred more than one day. One
yeah,
night was a little bit rough, but it was nice to get home into my own bed. So I'll give it that.
yeah. After all, you feel comfortable at your home only.
Yeah.
And how much did it cost you? Like, how did you manage to pay it, or it was an insurance? Like you were insured with it, or like who took care of the financial thing?
So I
Like
was
how was
insured, and my insurance paid it. So I just paid a copay.
it? Okay. And yeah. So after the surgery, like the mastectomy, which you had, so you had a both-sided like bilateral mastectomy and reconstructions.
I did.
After reconstruction, do you feel that some like the one side, like the doctor hasn't prepared, like maintained the proper symmetry, or one side is little abnormal, one side looks normal? He has done a good job. You are satisfied with the.
So when I went in to meet the plastic surgeon the first time, he
Hmm.
did use the words "have realistic expectations,"
Yeah.
um, and I didn't realize realistic what that really meant at the time. So I did have reconstruction.
Hmm.
They are not symmetrical, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
One is a little smaller than the other one.
Hmm.
Because what I didn't realize at the time, and I have learned since, is
Mm.
that radiation creates a lot of scar tissue on the
Okay.
radiated side, and
Hmm.
it makes it a little harder
Yeah.
to position it to where it looks natural and it can match the other side. Um,
Yeah.
so he did. Realistically, it's the best I could have expected. Does it look like it did before? No, but yeah.
Yeah. Like what, like how was your, when did they start with this radiation? Was it only radiation, or was it chemotherapy and radiation both? Like
I
how
had
was it?
both. I had
You
both.
had
So
both.
after the mastectomy, it was about a month later. So I think it was
Mm-hmm.
around the mid-November timeframe of 2019. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I went through 4 rounds of chemo.
Mm-hmm.
I did Taxotere and cyclophosphamide. I think that was,
Pastamide. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I did 2 doses of those every other week for 4 rounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, had the wonderful experience of watching my hair fall out. That was,
Okay.
yeah, that was exciting. Um,
But so you still have a good amount of hair, or
it
these
has
are
grown
extra?
back. It grew back. I
Oh,
went completely bald. Yeah, I was
yeah.
completely bald. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Like, okay. And do you have any upsetting memory regarding that? Like, except the hair loss part, do you have any other upsetting memory regarding the surgery or the chemo radiation? Any of them?
So the only, not, and I wouldn't call it an upsetting memory, but the only reality moment that I think I had, well, let me say I had two reality moments. The
Mm-hmm.
first moment was chemotherapy is just like you see on TV. You go into a room, everybody else is in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
and you're all getting chemo at the same time.
Mm.
And it was very, I don't want to say humbling is probably not the right word, but to notice that cancer doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
In that room with me, there were all ages, there were all demographics, all stages. I
Yeah.
was there, hoping to get cured. Some people were there just to hopefully prolong what they had.
Yeah.
So it was
Palliative sort of. Yeah.
very humbling, that experience. A funny
It was
experience. Yeah,
rather than upsetting, we would call it like an eye opener or something.
I would call that an eye opener. Yeah. The only kind of a funny experience that we had is when you really think about the magnitude of what chemo is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went in, I think it was my second or third round, and there
Okay.
was a new nurse I hadn't had before.
Mm-hmm.
And she puts in, obviously, the cannula. Oh, I lost you.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. I'm there.
Oh, okay,
Just
sorry. Yeah.
yeah. You
So
can go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
she puts in the cannula. She gives me the first round, which I think is this cyclophosphamide.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes to administer the Taxotere, and she pauses and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I need to make a change." And my husband, who was with me, was like, "Well, we've never had to have a change before." And she
Yeah.
says, "Well, I need to give you different tubing. You need to have the silicone tubing because this chemotherapy agent eats through plastic. So unless you want to
Yeah.
be wearing it, we need to change it." And that was really an aha. It was funny, number one, that she used the wrong one. And two, it was a very aha moment to the sheer power that
Of that
chemo
drug.
drugs have, that I'm ingesting this into my body, but yet it can eat through plastic.
Yeah.
So that was like my moment of, oh, wow, okay, this is really, really a serious drug. I don't think it really hit me how serious of a
Mm-hmm.
drug chemo is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and they come dressed like they're in a film, right? And they've got like this full armor
Yeah.
on. Um,
Yeah.
that didn't bother me. But when they said that statement, that's when it really hit
Oops.
home of, wow.
Oops. We got to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you could have not told me that.
You would have just changed saying that it is not functioning or something. So they had this silicon one placed here near your collarbone, or where did they put it?
I had a port, so I had a central line installed, so I had the chemo port. I
Yeah.
had that surgery like a day before I started chemo.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what kind of support system do you have? Like how apart from family, what kind of other support systems you have through your journey of battling or fighting this disease?
Oh, I had the best support system, and I don't think anybody can go through this without a good support system.
Mm-hmm.
I had people at work, friends at
Mm-hmm.
work, that
Mm-hmm.
would come by and say, "I bought you some lunch. Here, make sure you eat today." Or I had another friend that would come by, and she knew I had to take my anti-nausea pills at a certain time, and she knew I would always get busy and never take it. So she
Yeah.
set a calendar reminder for herself to come by every day to my desk at 1 o'clock and say, "Did you take your medicine?"
Yeah.
So the coworkers really helped. I had moments where, chemo kind of puts you in a fog,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
I had some days where the fog was pretty great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I had friends that would say, "You're a little foggy today. Won't you um, go home? Let us handle this meeting for you." So that was fantastic having that support system at work. Um,
Okay.
and even greater than that is just friendships. I had a best friend who lives about 3 hours away, um,
Mm-hmm.
who dropped everything to come up here, and she was here with my mastectomy. So she hung out with my child to distract my child so she wasn't so, worried. And um,
Yeah.
every surgery she was here and she was watching my child. Those
So kind of
people,
yeah.
yeah,
So
those were
kind.
people who were extraordinary.
And how do you feel like how has the society how has the society contributed in your journey? Did you notice any difference in their behavior or like those around you before and after your diagnosis? Like people will be showing too much. I'll use the word directly, bluntly. Pity. They will like have this pitiful look. So how did you deal with that?
So it was funny. I got a mix. I got a mix of people that were so supportive, strangers that were so supportive. Um, we had scheduled a Christmas trip for my daughter to New York a
Mm-hmm.
year in advance of all of this. So it had been booked a
Yeah.
year ahead for Christmas. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept telling every doctor, I don't care what you do, I can't have any treatments this week because I promised I'd take her to New York to see Hamilton, right? That's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. So I was worried about that trip on the plane and I was worried about, just being in a different city. I
Mm-hmm.
had like two people on the plane offer to carry my luggage because obviously I'm
Mm-hmm.
bald. It's obvious I have cancer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we were eating in a restaurant and I asked for the bill and the waiter said this bill was paid by someone that said they admire your courage. Um,
Okay.
so those were very heartfelt moments for me.
Yeah.
But you also had your people that when you were out in public that would look at you with pity. Um,
Yeah.
And I embraced that with a sense of humor. I
Yeah.
bought a T-shirt that said "My oncologist does my hair," and I wore that around.
So cool that is actually, like, actually it's very cool to find that you yourself are beating against the odds. It's
Yeah,
actually nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wore that everywhere. So overall, it was more overwhelming support than I think it
Mm-hmm.
was the pity looks. It was very heartwarming to see some of the way people supported me. I would have never expected someone to buy my food at a restaurant. That was just
Yeah.
above and beyond.
Apart your husband, it's somebody else who has now done this, like buying you a lunch or buying your dinner. Did
And it,
remind you, like, very nostalgic, like, oh, those were the days when, like, I used to pass in some restaurant and I used to, like, get my lunch bought or something.
Exactly. Back when I was young and people were doing that, but and we
No, you
don't
look
live.
young now also. Even I
Oh,
don't
thank
feel
you.
your, yeah. Actually, to be honest, I feel you're young only. I didn't notice. After you said you have a daughter, I was like calculating in my mind what might be the age actually.
Yeah, so I'm 50 now, if that matters. So I'm 50.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't like look like, but yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, people
So,
were overwhelming. I don't know who bought my lunch that day, but if I ever meet
mhm,
them or if they ever
mhm,
see me, I thank them for buying my lunch.
yeah. Uh, okay. So I have my next question for you. Like, what is your current perspective on your cancer journey? Actually.
And this is going to sound really strange, um, but in many ways, I'm thankful for some of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because it reconnected me with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
It reinforced for me what a strong protector he is. Um, what a just to sheer his love and ability to just drop everything for me. It just really reinforced that. He is the love of my life. We've been together for 27 years. Just watching that change in him was just remarkable. Um,
Yeah.
and I think bigger than that is watching my daughter. You don't like to think of your kids as growing up, right? You,
Mm-hmm.
you like to think of
Yeah.
them as little. And watching her at 16 years old say, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to get the groceries. I'm going to learn to cook. I'm going to cook dinner. Um, Running out and picking up prescriptions for me. Just
Yeah.
watching her kind of blossom into the young adult that I
Yeah.
really hadn't seen yet because I still saw her as a little girl.
Yeah.
Um, and you watching her go through all of that and still
Mm-hmm.
finishing the school year with a 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
that just it made me realize that she is stronger than I ever thought she was. So
Yeah. And
that was pretty
yeah.
mom worthy.
Yeah, you have more of a, you have a more of like your bittersweet memories around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have another question for you. Like, how important do you believe like the technology and research in this, like, fighting against cancer?
I think it is massively important.
Okay.
I will share that um I have 2 degrees. I've got an undergrad, I got a graduate degree. I like to think I'm somewhat educated. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly thought breast cancer was only hereditary. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly never knew that it was
Mm-hmm.
not just hereditary. So I will admit I skipped probably 5 to 7 years of mammograms.
Yeah.
Um, I had gone, I believe it was probably 7 years between my last mammogram and my diagnosis. I just never thought it important because it was no history in my family. So that obviously is very important. Early detection is the
You,
key.
yeah. You had any your like family members or your known any acquaintances who were like with suffering from cancer or anything? You know, you had anybody in contact? No, you
I
didn't
am the
have.
first person in my family to get cancer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, literally, the entire history of my family, I'm the first one to have cancer.
Okay. Yeah. When did they plan the hysterectomy? Like, was it an elective hysterectomy, or they said that is a prophylactically we have to get it rid of it? Like, what did they say?
So I had estrogen receptor positive and
Mm,
progesterone receptor positive and HER2 negative cancer.
okay.
So I had obviously hormone fed cancer.
Yeah.
Um, they originally approached me and said they would do an oophorectomy, which is
Yeah.
just removing my ovaries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or, the safer bet if you're going to go in there and do the oophorectomy anyways, is just to go ahead and do a full hysterectomy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
since my cancer was hormone fed, since it was obviously larger than I had expected at 3.5 centimeters, I just chose to electively have it done. I am on a hormone blocker, and I will
Mm-hmm.
be for the next probably 7 years.
Yeah.
But I wanted to take extra caution. I had already done the hard part. I'd already done the mastectomy. I'd already done the chemo. I'd already done the
Yeah.
radiation. One more bit of protection wouldn't hurt. So I
Yeah.
elected to have that. So that was an elective surgery.
Yeah. Like, what are your views on digitalization of the cancer healthcare?
I honestly, I am very excited about what's to come in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading up on it. I think it's called what CAD? Is that what it's called? Um, I think anything we can do. I'll take a step back. If I had been diagnosed with this 20 or 30 years ago, I wouldn't probably be alive today, right?
Yeah.
So if I look at the progression and the changes in just that short time frame, and I call that short because, let's face it, my age, right?
Yeah.
If I think about what we can change the next 20 or 30 years, and if we can get detection earlier and we
Yeah.
can do more lumpectomies and more prevention, it's going to completely change and make outcomes even better in the
Mm,
future. And
yeah.
I'm very excited about this space. I'm trying to learn more about this space, and I think it's going to be hopefully revolutionary in the space.
Yeah. We are ending to like time which is allotted. We are getting exhausted to it. So I have a
Yeah.
last question. Yeah, like what message would you like to convey to all our audience? Like whenever we'll be showing it to everybody, what is the word which you want it to reach to everybody?
I think, and I've thought about this question a lot. I think what I would say is
Mm-hmm.
cancer is a brutal disease. The current treatments for cancer are brutal as well.
Yeah.
It's borderline barbaric. They chop off your breast, they remove all
Yeah.
your female organs. Um, and to go through that and to come out the other side, um, I, looking back, wish I would have done more pre-screening, more checking, more annual mammograms.
Mm-hmm.
So what detection is the key. Early
Yeah.
detection is the key. And also, I think research and funding for research and making this either
Mm-hmm.
detectable much earlier or looking towards a cure is crucial. Because it is brutal, and I wouldn't want anybody to have to go through what I went through.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I'm so glad that you have spared your time for us, and I'm very grateful for you for this thing.
Thank
And I'm
you.
very happy that the interview went on very well. I was considering that I might end up with some big blunders, but went all. And so that I am so grateful of you. You were like, I thought that somebody who is where I was not able to find you on the social media. So I was like, I don't know whom I'm going to deal with. And so, but it was happy interviewing you. I would like to see you next. I will be expecting to see you very soon.
Yes,
If
please. If
we're
you
visit.
ever need anything else, you need me to speak to you again, I'd love to talk to you more. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing, and help in any way I can.
Yeah. In this world full of critics, thank you for being an encourager.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So we are like, it's night here
Okay, well,
and
good
sleep.
night.
Yeah. I wish you have a nice day, and yeah, we have a good night.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you. I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. Have a great
Yeah.
one.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.